Hello folks, hope you're having a wonderful day. There is a reason why we have the low budget but still classic background on today. That is because I asked you the other day to be involved in this video. Well, we are going to be discussing your faction, your favourite faction. What you do in the hobby, you know? When you look at Warhammer 40k, you are all, bar none, attracted to one faction more than the others. It may be Imperial Guard because you like military history. It may be Dark Eldar because, you know, you're a bit of a freak and you like going to heavy metal clubs and dungeons and stuff. You know, you never know why you're into a certain army, but the fact of the matter is, there is always one army that everybody likes more than everything else. That's me included, right? Grey Knights are my thing. I love them. And there we are. But I asked you the other day to be involved in this video, and I gave you a brief, right? And that brief is, what is your main frustration with your one favourite faction? It can be lore or rules in the current Warhammer 40,000 landscape and meta. What needs to change in 11th edition to improve things for you? So, what we're doing here, we did a general video the other week where we said, you know, what needs to change in 11th edition to bring you back, you know, and things like that. I wanted to drill down on that and kind of look at, faction by faction, what needs to change on a faction basis for you to be like, okay, things have changed, I'm really happy with the way things are going. We are getting to the end of 10th edition now. There was somebody in the video the other week when they said, at the end of 10th edition, I don't even have my codex yet. I know, mate. You're not getting one. That's the whole point. That's one of the things that needs to change. But we are on the downward slope now toward 11th edition. If we look at every single edition as a roller coaster, we've gone over the apex and now we're starting our downward trajectory to come back to the stall where we get our tickets, you know what I mean, to get back on the ride again for 11th edition. So that's where we are right now on the journey of 10th. We can now see the finishing line of this edition. It is on the horizon, and you can bet your bottom dollar that Games Workshop already have plans in place. They already have things in place ready to go for when the new edition does drop. They probably already know what army's going to be in the box set. They probably already know where the narrative's going to go, if anywhere at all, because you know what they're like. And yeah, we're there. So I asked you guys to give me your opinions, and what's more, you can read the hint there. You know, the primer there. What is your main frustration with your one favourite faction, lore or rules, in the current Warhammer 40,000 landscape and meta? What needs to change in 11th edition to improve things for you? Not necessarily what will bring you back, but to improve how you'll enjoy your faction. So let's read them out, shall we? Let's get involved with Wolves 4299. In fact, let's sort by top comments, why not? Alright. Here he is. He's a Discord member, is Wolves. So well done you. Thank you very much for being a Discord member. Salamanders deserve more recognition. Despite being one of the most popular chapters, we lack a codex or chapter-specific characters. Sure, we have Adrax Agatone, which is great, but Vulcan Histan is an old, out-of-date, difficult-to-paint model that desperately needs a new look. There are whispers that we may be receiving a new Histan model, but nothing is in stone yet. I feel like when it comes to the lore, chapter-specific characters, and the lack of a codex, the Salamanders have been treated unfairly. Here's the thing, I absolutely do sympathise with what you're saying, but I also think that, you know, every single Xenos player is looking at you like that hangman meme, you know, first time, right, that kind of a thing. Like, they've been here for years, dude, you know. I do sympathise. In terms of Space Marines getting their time in the sun, yeah, you guys are starved. Absolutely. Salamanders players are starved. But look at this way, Wolves. There is a coolness to being starved. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not an Ultramarine. You're not Space Wolf. You're not so popular that everybody knows, you know, everybody wants to play Salamanders. You've got your own thing, and that's what the Salamanders are. So be very careful what you wish for. Because if you want Games Workshop to come and give you some Primaris Marines, they may do, but those prices will go up, and the amount of models you have will, you know, go down. So be very careful what you wish for. But I do agree that you deserve more. A lot of armies do, though. Let's be honest. DeHunter76 says, Discord member here. Thank you, DeHunter. After thinking on it for about an hour, I realised I don't have a good answer to the prompt. I just wanted to say, you do good work, and I and many others appreciate it. Oh, thank you very much, man. Thank you very much. Jarl Barlin123 says, my main frustration is the lack of customization. Not just unit and war gear upgrades and sizes, I mean like the customization of your own chapter master or chapter, like they had in older editions, for example. I get that you can paint and build how you want them to look, but every single Space Marine army feels like a different coloured Ultramarine. I guess that's a side effect of going down the competitive route. It is, it is. I've often said, this is one of my pet things that I like to say. One of the main things that I like to say. Listen, why can't we have, more customization? Put it in a White Dwarf. It doesn't need to be in a rule book, right? Put it in a White Dwarf. Give us rules where, hey, if you want to make your own chapter master, here's how you do it, and here's the rules you can use to build him, to make him your own, right? You should be able to create your own units, dude, within reason. Absolutely. There is a man climbing on a tree in a high-vis jacket outside my window. And he's very high up. We've got massive trees beside our back garden. It's a lovely place, but I hope he's not going to fall. Anyway, talk of a salamander, and he appears outside your window in green. Anyway, yeah, I absolutely agree that we should have the rules to do chapter masters. We should also have the rules to do our own unique units within reason. Of course, there should be, rules, special rules you can give, or mix and match special rules to actually make your own bodyguard units or your own, frontline siege breaker units, things like that, to really give your army a more personalised touch. There's one thing that 40k is missing, and you are right in what you say. Going down the competitive route will make Space Marines more homogenous. It just is what it is, because it's too difficult to branch in all of these things in a competitive scene. Gilbert7110 says, Death Guard here. Another chaos flavour to be used as the villain of the week, to be the punching bag for the heroes of the setting. Make things matter. Death Guard is slow to spread. We need a lot of life for our withering guts to blossom, but physically. Okay, so make things matter. Okay, I get what you're saying there. It's a bit of a jumbly way that you've said it, but I get what you're saying. There needs to be stakes in, matchups in the lore, right? We need to be... One side needs to lose a certain campaign. One side needs to win a certain campaign. There was a Tau one back in the day where they actually won a campaign against the Imperium and it stuck. But no, the Tau just win. And I was like, wow, okay, cool. Lower the days where we get those back, you know what I mean? Vesticon91 says, Discord member here, thank you very much, my friend. Psychic phase and customization being lost. I loved last edition making my Carcharodons both stealthy and good on the charge, whilst having teleportation, shadow wizard money, gang psychic powers. Nowadays in 10th, I can choose either stealthy ranged focus or melee focus with no in between. Makes it hard to fit the theme of my army on the tabletop. Okay. Alright. Psychic phase. Listen, even as a Grey Knight, I need to say this, okay? I was okay with the psychic phase going away. I didn't like the fact that 90% of my games in 9th and 8th edition basically boiled down to me having an extra phase when my opponent didn't. Especially if he's playing somebody like Necrons, right? Or Black Templars. Like, so in my store, when I was running games in 8th edition, I'd play sometimes, and we had a lot of Necron players, and a lot of Sisters players, and a lot of Black Templars players. The Black Templars players were like 5 or 6 guys from South America. I don't know why, but it worked out that way. Anyway, every single time I played these dudes, they would stand there bored, and I'd sort of become a comedian, like trying to kind of entertain them with my roles. I'm like, I feel really bad. Like, you're sitting there for 20 minutes while I do my psychic powers. Just, it's awful. So I don't mind that going away and just being a thing you can do now in certain units. Like, I quite like that. I think that's a streamlining that had to happen. The psychic phase, the game was fine without it, and the game will be fine without it going forwards, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, and I'm a Grey Knight player, so I should want the psychic phase. The other stuff, customization, we've already covered that, but yes. By the way, guys, please don't get offended if I've already covered something in the video. If I skip a part of your point, it's because it's already come up, and I don't want people listening to get bored out of their tears, because we're all saying the same thing over and over. I get your point. I absolutely agree with it, right? Don't treat it as me skipping over your point. But you are right, yes. And Carcharodons, this is a really good example, right? Of you being able to be good at stealthy on the charge and having teleportation, shadow wizard, money, gang, psychic powers. That's cool, right? A really robust game system would allow you to do things like that without breaking the back of the system. The problem with 10th is it's so brittle and it's so liable to break at any point that you actually doing things like this will actually break 10th edition. like if you were allowed to do things like you could in previous editions with your Carcharodons, it would break the game for other people playing the game with you, and that wouldn't be fun. That is Games Workshop's problem, though, not yours. As a customer, you deserve more cool things to do, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Right, moving on. Robo Dragon Knight says, Discord member here, thank you, mate. Tau was my second army after Tyranids. There's nothing special about them in 10th edition. Their marker light system has been changed to universal +1 to hit. Yeah, that sucks. This kind of thing sucks balls. I really hate it. I hate the not the oversimplification, but the demystification and the decoolness. That's not even a word, but you know what I mean. The stripping away of the coolness, the unique aspect of certain rules that certain factions have. Making it a blanket +1 to hit, kind of lame. You used to be able to stack them up, and that was great. Because I'd look at Tau sheets back in the day, in 7th edition, 6th edition, and I'd be like, what? 5+ to hit? That sucks. And then a Tau player would go, Marklight, 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 Marklight. That thing's dying. That was awesome. That was such a cool way of doing it. It was like, yeah, we can't do this on everybody, but that one thing over there, all my Tau can now see it, and the tech that's in their armor can now, can really, hone in on the firepower and take that thing down. That was absolutely awesome. Even coming up against it, you could get a sense of, the guys throwing Marklights at a certain unit. You're like, oh my god, here we go. Here we go. It's 2+ to hit. Here we go. This is gonna hurt, right? But it was really balanced because by doing that, he's kind of ignoring everything else because he's gonna get a 4+ or 5+ to hit on everything else. Which means, yes, he's firing down this one really powerful unit that you have, but the rest of your army is advancing on him in quick time and absolutely smashing him to bits. I remember. Sorry, my mouth today is so dry. One sec. My friend Michael used to be a key staff member in a store in the northeast, and I went and played him at Games Workshop one day, and he had his Tau there with 2 Riptides and loads of Fire Warriors, and it was a really nasty list. And I went in there with my Grey Knights, and we're having a smashing good time, and that is what won me the game. He kept doing marker lights on Drago's unit to try and wipe him out. Well, Drago at that point had a 2+ invulnerable save if you used Sanctuary on him, the Psychic Power Sanctuary. He already had a 3+ invulnerable save because of his Storm Shield, but casting Sanctuary on himself, he got to have a 2+ invulnerable save. So his unit died, but he rocked it every single time. Like, he was just like, no, just wouldn't go down. The rest of my army tore the bottom out of his Tower list. Right, it was really a really close game. I think I won by a single point or something. It was a really good game. But those are the kinds of rules that are really powerful if used correctly, But also there is a downside to them. But they're so flavorful as a Tau player. Throwing mark lights up there, you can almost see it like a futuristic, like a spinning, and it goes on to the target, and it just blinks there. And every town on the table goes, marker light, okay. And they turn around as one, and they start shooting. That's such a cinematic thing to do. We're losing cinema in 40k. And I think Robo Dragon Knight is such a good point. That's such a good point. And they sometimes ignore cover. There's no customization for the battle suits anymore. We've covered customization. I agree with you. David Brick Productions says, Discord member here, thank you. Painting an orc vehicle red should make it go faster in the game. So stupid that they removed that rule, and now painting it red has no effect in the game. Again, cinema. We want cinema. The law should resemble the rules, and the rules should resemble the law. We want Ludo narrative Harmony, please. I absolutely agree. Saber, the Tale Teller, says, Discord member here, thank you very much, my friend. I have 2 gripes with Space Marines as they are right now. One specific to me, and one more wide-reaching. The more specific gripe is a lack of bike options. I love using bikes, that's all he says. I love using bikes and made my army back in 7th with the purpose of, and then he doesn't say anything else. Alright, well, Saber, sort that out and I'll read it in the next video. In fact, email it to me. Email me your thoughts. Because I hate that somebody's going to be out there going, oh my god, I didn't write it properly. No, send it to me in an email and then I'll read it out next video. Alright, cool. Aesthetic Dreams 24 says, as a Chaos player, I feel like I get refreshes all the time, but they really don't have any impact or fix any of the issues that we have. All Legions feel starved for units, and regular Chaos Space Marine still feels like it's missing key tools. I feel like a lot of players in my area think I'm complaining and not grateful for new models. The problem is that whenever Chaos gets something, we either lose units or we get an update that doesn't fix anything. I'm tired of being told to be grateful for Games Workshop popping out another character sheet that fills none of the roles I need. Dude, Death Guard players will be hearing you, right? Death Guard players for years have been saying, give us somebody to lead Poxwalkers, please. Give us somebody to lead Chaos Demons, please. I don't want any more Plague Marines. I've got so many fucking Plague Marines coming out of my arse. Which is nice, because I'm a Death Guard player, and I like things coming out of my arse. But, needless to say, I would like more things, please. I don't need any more. What do they bring out next? A Death Guard Plague Marine character. They've already got 8, whatever it is. They don't... You know, you can't even bring all of these dudes in a single list. Oh, you know, I completely get what you're saying. It's like Games Workshop look at what you actually want, and they say, hey, let's do the opposite. Yeah, dude, as a Grey Knight player, I also feel your pain, you know. What do you want? New models? Cool. Here's an upgrade sprue for the Dread Knight. The thing you don't like. Right? I'm not sure if I'm alone in this. You're definitely not. You're definitely not alone in this. But it's been causing me to have a strange relationship with the hobby since 8th edition. The only person I've seen talk about this was Outer Circle. I love Maka. We all love Maka. Right? We all love it. We all love Maka. Curious on your thoughts and love the content. P.S. I was hoping to get back into 10th with all the Chaos Legions getting codexes, but Adepticon reveals made my burnout on 40k return. Guess I'll watch my loyalist cousins get new toys for the next 2 years. This is the thing I don't think Games Workshop get. Right? I don't think they understand this. Is that when you do something like Adepticon, there's a lot of excitement there. Quite rightly so too. You should be excited about things coming out in the hobby. But also, you need to be very careful. Because if you do things like this, you can burn people out. If it's one too many, people can go, do you know what? Fuck that shit. I'm not being here anymore. I'm not getting anything new that I want, so I'm just going to go elsewhere. Or I'm going to go to 3D printing and do it there, you know? That is one thing, Aesthetic Dreams. Mini Maker, go and look at them. They have the things you want for Death Guard. Literally. They have the things you want for Death Guard. They have an entire smorgasbord of Death Guard stuff. Go and look at them. Minimaker.com. Use the promo code Northern Exile to get yourself 10% off your order at checkout. By the way, people say, why is he always bringing that up? He must get a kickback. No, I don't. Nope. Minimaker is a growing company run by a really cool guy who has given me 1 or 2 free models in the past, and I want to support them. That's it. I don't get anything from them. So, yeah. Go over there, give them some love. John12644 says, Number 1, I hope 11th has more customization. I like making my dudes feel like my dudes. Yep, covered that one. Number 2, before bringing out any new armies in 11th, make your current armies feel like real full armies. Many armies feel like they're half done, waiting for the rest of their releases. I get that, yeah. Number 3, upgrade sprues at the very least for all Chaos Legions. We've just covered that, yeah. 4, no more stratagems. Controversial. Stratagems can work. They can work. There just needs to be far less of them. Well, not far less, but they do need to be written in a different way, right? Stratagems that grind the game to a halt and result in a back and forth for 20 minutes, those need to be nuked. Thrown in the fucking sea, right? But stratagems that are actually cinematic, Markalites, right? Marker-lights aren't a stratagem, but they could be, right? Marker-lights are a really cool thing. That's a really cinematic thing that needs to be in the game. If you can't do it properly, Games Workshop, just give it as a stratagem, you know? But a stratagem that you can play multiple times a turn. Marker-light, 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 Marker-light kind of a thing. That'd be cool, right? Number 5, alternating activations. I agree. A lot of people tend to want to be contrarian on that point, say we don't need alternating activations, and then they play OPR, and they go, holy shit, this is so much better, right? I'm not just saying that because I play OPR myself and I'm a big fan of it. No, what I'm saying is that the actual flow of the game, forget what the rules are. Forget what the rules are for a sec. The actual flow of a game, me go, you go, me go, you go, right? The flow of that game is so much better. You're talking to your opponent more, right? You're having fun. You're going back and forth a lot of the time. You're interacting with the game and your opponent. You're having fun together. It's a cooperative experience. And you can kind of see your opponent's plans happening in real time, and it's awesome, right? You no longer have to stand there for an hour and a half, sometimes, doing nothing but saving throws. Alternating activations is the fucking future, and I will not come down from that hill. Sorry. I've said this a few times on YouTube, and I will say it over the weekend because I'm doing a special video on Saturday about this. But, like, my opinions have changed on a lot of things during my time on YouTube. In fact, I've become more of a mellow person. I'm being serious. I'm a lot more mellow, a lot more centre line, and you guys have done that to me, right? I don't take this the wrong way, but you guys have, like, actually convinced me of things in the past where I'm like, do you know what? I was wrong there. I was wrong to think that. I'm going to change that. I was wrong to think that. I now have evidence to say that I should think in another way, and I'm going to do that, right? But alternating activations, I was introduced to them through the channel, and I've stuck with them, and I've yet to see an argument that can actually tell me that that shouldn't happen in 40k. Sorry, I think one of the only reasons why it doesn't happen is because Games Workshop don't want it to happen. They've got it in Kill Team, that's as far as it's going to go, right? Because their brand is, you know, I do all of my shit for 2 hours, then you do all of your shit for 2 hours. Not for me. Scrounger King says, Discord member here. How's it going, man? I'm a relatively new player, having started with Death Guard just over a year ago, and having recently expanded into Chaos Knights. As far as Death Guard is concerned, I find the faction lore and general shtick to be awesome. Same can be said of... Okay, a lot of these are cutting off. Why? Yeah, a lot of these are cutting off, and there's no option to expand them again. Is this a YouTube bug? Alright, guys, if you've been hampered by this YouTube bug, there's no option to expand what you've said. So if you've been hampered by... Some of them are, see? Like this one, that's fine. This one, that's fine. But if you've been caught by this bug, let me know. Send your thoughts in an email, and I'll do a follow-up video next week with your thoughts on them, okay? Alright. Puggy Monkey Baby says... Puggy Monkey Baby. Discord member here, thank you, mate. I am a relatively new player, and some of my friends got some of my friends into 40k as well. Good. The biggest issue we have is obviously the price. Since some of my pals can't afford a $500 plastic army, and the rules being so complex for new players. I believe 11th edition should have less gotcha rules and gimmicks, and more simple to get into the hobby and build an army. Okay, right. What you've done here, man, is you have, in a very short statement, opened a very big can of worms. Because there will be a lot of people in the hobby who don't want that. Okay? A lot of people will already say 11th edition is 10th edition is too far into the, you know, get new players in brigade sort of a thing. Their whole mission statement was, you know, what was it? Complex but not complex. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't remember what the statement was, but it's somewhere along those lines. And for a 10th edition. And I think in that they failed. They failed, right? They wanted to make it complex but not confusing. No, they failed. It is confusing, okay? It is very, very... It's a confusing, long, laborious game at the moment. Unless you really know what you're doing and you've got the time to stick into maybe even doing a GED in 40k 10th edition, you know what I mean? It's very easy for people like Vanguard Tactics and people like that to talk down to you and tell you games of 40k don't take very long, it's just you, get good. Mate, playing 40k is your fucking job. It's not my job, right? It's your job, mate. You've got all day. You've got 8 hours plus a day to read the rules. To bury your head in codexes, to know every rule from every army. I don't have that time. And neither do 99% of the people who play this game. Right? If you're the kind of person who says shit like that, go fuck yourself, get in the sea. Right? Because you're either unemployed or you work in the hobby. One of the two. Right? Or you're a very, very, very intelligent, some sort of savant when it comes to wargaming, right? But you're, whatever the case may be, the point stands, you're in the minority, the vast minority. You know, so I get what Puggy Monkey is saying here. Absolutely. Less gotcha rules, yeah, I'm with you there, and gimmicks. Now, gimmicks is a thing that, gotcha rules and gimmicks aren't the same, okay? Marker lights are a gimmick. And they should be in the game. Every faction, in my opinion, should have a gimmick. Every faction should be broken in its own way, you know? Absolutely. You know, Tau should be so good at shooting that if you stand in the open for too long, or you don't play against them in a way that takes that into account, you're going to get fucked in the ass. Right? Grey Knights should be broken in a way that if you're not very careful of leaving options for their deep striking, right? If you leave too many options for them to deep strike in, if you don't protect your characters and your big monsters and vehicles from them, they will rip you a new one. Because they love killing things with lots of wounds. That's, or if you're a demon player, soil your pants, right? That's how the game should be. I'm sorry, people say, well, what if I'm a demon player and I don't want to play Grey Knight? Sucks to be you, man. Sucks to be you. The law says this, the law says this, so the rule should represent the law. That's it, right? Now, if you're a demon general, right, when the Grey Knights turn up, you should be shitting yourself. You should be like, oh my god. Like, you should be holding on by your fingernails the entire time, because that's epic. That's a cool game. To see these Silver Knights just cutting through swathes of your dudes as you try and make your objectives. Do you know what I mean? The whole point of the Grey Knights is to turn the table on demons and really big monsters. That's the whole point. And that's how it should be represented in the lore. If you don't like that, get fucking good. Right? The game should be easy enough for you to pick up and get so good at a demon list army that even if a Grey Knight is cutting through swathes of your dude, you can still win a victory on points on the tabletop, right? By doing your objectives, you're killing certain characters, things like that, right? That's how the game should be balanced. But even then, that Grey Knight player should feel like an epic hero slicing through dozens of fucking demons at a time. Because that's what his army does. If you're neuter everybody, to bring it back down to a grey fucking sludge, we get nowhere. I'm going to do a video on this next week, because I did one on it last week, and my opinions have changed somewhat, so I'm going to do another video on it next week. But yeah, I agree. But gotcha rules should go, but gimmicks, no. Gimmicks should be in the game, man. You know, gimmicks should be in the game, or everything is just a grey sludge. Demonic says, there's a name I know. Discord member here, how's it going, man? Lore and narrative is pretty much the goody humans versus baddie humans show now. The sense of the wider universe seems to be paling in the narrative as Xenos go largely ignored, except to occasionally be punching bags. Yeah, that's why I got really excited by Rogue Trader when they brought in the Dark Eldar and things, you know. But it does suck. Game, I hate being railroaded, and Games Workshop seem determined to reduce choice and options wherever they can. The one monopose kit per option direction we seem to be heading in is unwelcome, and the constant blunt push to the correct choices. Yeah, this has been a thing Games Workshop have done for years. It's like a rolling tide, right? But, you know, sometimes the tide, you know, comes in for Games Workshop, and it's like, yeah, we're taking away all your options, but then the tide will go out again, and you'll get loads of options. I just wish they'd stick with the loads of options thing, and not like, you know, Give your players options. Give your players more things to sink their teeth into. The more you rely on the tournament crowd, the competitive crowd, the less money you are going to make. Because they're not the ones putting money in the coffers. They're the ones getting their armies from fucking eBay. The guys who are buying their stuff to do actual modelling, right? And actual dioramas. And actual cool themed armies. They're the ones putting money in your bank account for the vast majority of your time there. Okay, Games Workshop? If you go down this route, I love you tournament players. You get bang for your buck, and I love that, right? Absolutely. What I'm saying is Games Workshop, basically building their entire business around placating you and nobody else, is a recipe for disaster. You know, it is. It is. And it will bite them eventually, I'm telling you now. KD8 says, Discord member here. How's it going, man? The fact that a lot of factions are losing their mystery and, to me, their appeal. For example, what is the point in explaining Eldar Wraithbone? yeah, I knew this would come up. When in reality, it's much better left up to the imagination of the player. Yeah, it's midichlorians, man. What is the Force? It's an esoteric force. No. It's parasites. It's parasites in the blood. The midichlorians. And we can count them like a sperm count. What? I get the idea of maintaining the setting believability, but that should stick to the human factions and even the Tau. I want my space elves to be magic, damn it. I think this is just one example of a greater problem in the game of just no knowing when to stop, not knowing when to stop. Why bring back so many Primarchs? You've written it like the store, Primarch. That's hilarious. Why bring back so many Primarchs? Why make the Horus Heresy so concrete? Sure, it's given us some great stories. No, it hasn't. But explaining it in such detail does distract somewhat from the grimdark future. Knowing that the age of the Emperor looked a great deal like the current Imperium lessens its decline somewhat for me and its narrative impact. It's the same problem the prequels had in Star Wars. They detracted somewhat from the mystery of the setting, which is a core part of 40k in my opinion. Well, you went down the same route that I did, the midichlorian stuff. I agree. I don't know why. I think you could have moved the story into the 42nd millennium and kept it grimdark, kept it tragic, but also, like, kept it kind of weirdly. There's like a ray of hope in there. Why? Because ironically, the Emperor being on the Golden Throne has made him an actual god. You know? That would be cool. They have shown that idea once or twice, but they seem terrified to pull the trigger on it. Because, you know, God forbid anybody but Rabute Gilliman get any sort of fucking screen time. But yeah, I agree with everything that you've said. Potato217. Oh, he's written an essay. He's written an essay. Oh my god, folks. Oh my god, how many... Oh, okay. We may have to do this in 2 parts. We may have to do... How far are we into it already? Okay. I'm going to go for another... yeah, I'll go for as long as I can. And then we'll have to split it into 2 parts. Alright? I'll know when I got up to. So we'll do it. We'll do the rest next week. Alright. Potato217 says, Discord member here. Hello. Imperial Guard. At the start of 10th, the Guard was so flexible in list building that they made the whole game a lot more fun before I rolled my first dice. It soon dawned on me that core rules changes in certain characters have nerfed the Guard completely. Commissars are only useful in protecting its attached unit from a battle shock test. If a unit fails, then the Commissar executes a guardsman, but the unit loses the order I gave it at the start of my turn. Should the Commissar had one line added to the rules of the order returns if you execute a model, then it would definitely make this one model an auto-include and would fit in with the lore nicely. Yeah. This is why, do you know what, that one paragraph is why Games Workshop need to bring in the community into designing their rules. Right. Absolutely. Because, you know, there are certain people at Games Workshop who write these rules. They may know about 40k as a whole, but in terms of, like, doing their own thing, they're not going to know much about it. Do you know what I mean? They'll throw these rules in there when they could be... They'll throw in a 5 out of 10 rule, but it could be a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 rule, with Potato there doing some of the rules writing for the Imperial Guard. Do you know what I mean? We need to be involved here. Artillery has been nerfed to hell that the new Krieg models are not worth their points. When 10th first started, I had a combo for indirect fire. I gave my indirect fire units the take aim order, improves hit characteristic by 1. A scout sentinel within 18 inches of an enemy radios in, hey, enemies at XYZ coordinates, you can't fucking miss. To remove indirect fire penalty with rerolls of 1. And finally, I used the stratagem Expert Bombardiers, which allowed a Vox caster in an infantry unit to become useful to give me a +1 to hit on indirect fire weapons. A costly, risky, but necessary combo to have if I wanted to stand the chance of stopping my enemy from completing their secondaries or lightly peppering them before I throw bodies at them. That's true, but all of this slows down the game. You say that as if it's a good thing, right? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think you should be able to achieve the same results with a single rule. Do you know what I'm saying? Honestly, I honestly think you should be able to achieve the same results with a single rule that allows you to do something like this. I don't know, man. I don't think you need to explain these 4 rules to your opponent every time you want to do this to get the same result, which is basically I make this one unit better at shooting. That's what I'm saying. I think there are better ways. There's more streamlined ways to do that. But anyway. But now, the stratagem is gone. My scout only gives units a reroll of 1. Indirect only hits on a 4+ with full penalties of -1 to hit, and enemy gets full cover. Even if I buffed a unit to technically hit on a 3, the rules are telling me, no, fuck you, fuck your mortars, and fuck your new Krieg artillery. Why am I wasting points on a unit to hit 50% of the time when my enemy gets rerolls to hit, has a 3+ save, a 5+ invulnerable save, and a 5+ feel no pain? I'm looking at you, Necron players. It makes me feel like the Guard doesn't live up to their name of infantry horde, tanks, and thundering cannons. What do I want for 11th? OPR 40k. I am tired of the constant rule changes and FAQs that requires me to act like a lawyer during my game. I am tired of the complexity of the game and waiting 30 to 45 minutes for my opponent to finish their turn before I can even play the game. It actually makes my experience worse since I'm constantly thinking that my opponent is feeling the same when it is my turn. So I often do my best to play faster. Yeah, and in doing that, man, you're missing your rules. You know, you're focusing more on playing faster to make their time better than you are just enjoying the game and playing the hobby. Unit activation is far more enjoyable than having myself or my enemy move their entire army and possibly eliminating half of the units before there's even a chance to react. That's another thing that alternating activations does, right? Don't you hate that feeling when you've got a new model, right? And you're really loving it. You're really loving getting in there and really having a good time with it. And then, it's blasted off the table at the top of turn 1 and you never got to use it. Or you got to move it, and before it can even get into combat, it's dead in the next turn, right? OPR doesn't do that. In an OPR, you're going to get to use that unit. It may die when it gets into combat. It may lose some of its numbers or wounds before it gets into combat, but you're going to get into combat. You're going to have it do things, right? Every single unit in OPR will do something. You never put a unit on the tabletop in OPR and then don't use it. You will get to move, shoot, charge, and fight with every single... I've seen it happen like once when something dies really quickly, but very, very, very rarely will any unit that you have on the field not do all of those things for at least one turn. You get to use everything because of alternating activations, right? You can even psych out your opponent. I've done this before. If I want my opponent to not think about me taking one objective, I'll put a really juicy target on the other side. And you can actually see, in real time, his units start to move that way. Go, oh shit, right, the other flank's getting pressed in there. It's so cool, man. It's so cool. If Games Workshop just handed the rules making over to OPR, never happening, and then they can still make me the best models in the industry without losing their customers. Why the fuck do I need to pay $70 for a book when the rules were free or mission decks that is essential for standard games? Please turn 40k 10th edition into 40k competitive or 40k standard and turn 11th edition into OPR or calling it 40k narrative. The casuals will be happy, sweaty players will be happy, and you'll be happy for the money that you'll continue to make. If not, then fuck it, I'm just sticking to OPR like nothing has changed, and continue to have fun in my little corner over here. Yeah, dude, you answered your own question. Have fun in your corner. Okay. I think we're going to stop in a little bit, so I'm going to... Who do I know? We'll stop at Cooper. And we'll continue next time. Storm Dagger says, Discord member here. As a Night Lords collector and lore enjoyer, I sometimes feel a bit frustrated at the lack of context around them, despite the faction having such a large and dedicated fan base. The Night Lords trilogy by Aaron Dembski Bowden is easily one of the better-selling Black Library books, and it's also widely popular in the fan base. The Nemesis Claw Team box routinely sells out everywhere and anywhere it's actually sold, and on top of that, it won Mini of the Year. Despite this, there's no other faction, specifically units or novels. The best we can get is being featured around Harken World Claimer on cover art and brief mentions in campaign books. Harken isn't even a Night Lord, and he often feels quite forced in. On top of this, less famous characters from Age of Sigmar and other 40k novels have, and we don't. Okay, yeah, this is typical, like, Salamander from the start of the video, right? Very similar. And I agree. Yeah, Night Lords deserve more love. I do. Duppy Man says, my frustration is with in-game marketing. Ooh, rules written just to sell more plastic. And what needs to change? Everything. Also, I'd like to add at this point, it's The Boy Who Cried Wolf, because at the beginning of 10th edition, they promised us the world and failed to deliver in spectacular form, and they will do the same with 11th. I wouldn't believe anything they tell us. Dude, you may as well be talking about politics. Right? You know? I've never known a time in human history where it's literally not worth fucking voting. Because they promise you the world, and the second they get into office, they renege on everything and just don't do it, right? That kind of a thing. Because they got your vote now. They're in. They don't need you anymore. Same with Games Workshop. They will promise you the world, my friend, and as soon as they've got your money, they don't need you anymore. Go fuck yourself. GillyGuy52 says, Discord member here. Hello, man. I play AdMech as a primary faction. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Yeah. Games Workshop can't decide what they should be. Their keywords and special rules separate them into 3 sub-factions when the range has only become large enough to be well-rounded with its battlefield roles, but splitting it into Cybernetica, AdMech and Skitarii undermines that. The 8th edition rulebook did a fine job making them into a single faction, and I want that back. P.S. The Skitarii infantry getting hit with the curse of box compliance keeps them off the table for me, unless my opponent is fine with me doing triple special weapons. I'm not rolling for 3 to 4 profiles on a chaff unit. That's such a really good point. I am not rolling 3 to 4 weapon profiles on a chaff unit. Yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth the brain power. They're going to die. They're going to die in the first 30 seconds of the game. It's not worth it. I completely understand that. The overcomplication of rules for units that no one really gives a shit about, right? Again, I like Skitarii, but they are the chaff. It's like imagine an average guardsman unit having 4 to 5 weapon profiles in a single unit when all they're there to do is run at objectives and clog the treads of tanks up with their bodies. Do you know what I mean? The mental anguish you'd go through. Oh my god, again. Okay, there's this flamer. Roll to wounds, auto hits, right? I've got a missile launcher, roll to hit. You know, you're there for hours, dude. Yeah. The stat line is also standard for Imperials. Would like it if they were speed 7 for flavour. Yeah, that'd be cool. Cooper Bart Oviak says. It is Bart Koviak? Is it? Bart Koviak? Yeah. Here from the Discord. Hi, dude. Hi, North. Tyranid fan here. Oh, this is another one that's cut off, so I will skip that one. Email me, Cooper. Email me with your thoughts, my friend. Backstab McCrow says, Discord member here. How's it going, dude? Quality of rule writing needs to be massively improved upon. It's not enough to slapdash together 4 detachments and launch them with barely any testing. You're a massive company producing a game to go with those minis. Act like a responsible corporate entity for once and guarantee the quality of both products. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Karubris says, Discord member here, hello. For me, my favourite faction is Emperor's Children. However, I'm quite frustrated that whenever people think of Emperor's Children, it just boils down to seeing them as sex. So the algorithm doesn't kill the comment. Drugs and rock and roll, as whilst they do have that, it isn't their main thing. In my opinion, to me, Emperor's Children represent taking perfection to its extremes. They are so obsessed with the idea of perfection that they have wholeheartedly lost the concept and have become the furthest thing from it, whilst being too egotistical and arrogant to see how far they have fallen. And I wish more people saw that. That is true, but it is also a very complex idea, and this is a mini-making company. But I agree. Mr. Awesome React says, Discord member here, representative of Dionysius, and follower of your Rewrite Legions live streams. Yeah, I've seen you, Mr. Awesome. Thank you very much, my friend. I'm a massive Chaos fan, but I always felt they were too cartoony in the current setting. They come off as very incompetent and easily defeated by Imperium characters. Abaddon is the worst offender here, as his big victory with the opening of the Great Rift barely does anything. Entire worlds cut off from the Astronomicon should be doomed, but they're relatively fine. And even the lion teleporting with the dumbass forest walk thing. Even Chaos Primarch's returns aren't respected, with all of them returning and getting their ass obliterated by Gilliman or the lion or whatever. Black Crusades were really dumb. The way I would change this is Chaos does gain real ground, and the Imperium has to change tacts to adapt. That's why I liked your Decimus Warmaster idea, because having a villain that can see the future would force the Imperium to change. I will delve deeper into that in another video. I will do. A Positive Geekery says, Discord member here, hello. What I'm currently frustrated with are that the missions don't match the narrative of the battle. It's so annoying how it's all about getting points by standing near a certain spot. Imagine it from the setting point of view. A World Eater's warband wipes out an Imperial Guard army in bloody close combat. However, the Imperial Guard technically won the battle because they had men standing at a certain spot for a few minutes before they did, but the World Eaters didn't stand around. I get that. I think but the problem here is that the rules are being taken very literally, as they're supposed to be, they're rules. But at the same time, I'm also kind of thinking that the story in my head here is that the Imperial Guard are trying to hold a place for, the relaying communications to the wider fleet or the wider army or something before they get wiped out. But because they sent that message, they technically won the battle because they achieved their objectives. But so did you, because you're the World Eaters and you wiped everybody out, right? But I get what you're saying. The game is very silly for not just... there are ways to make that more elegant without making it suck, I'd be fine with a game being drawn, right? Literally. I'd honestly be fine with people saying, if this happens, if one army is wiped out, but manages to outscore the other person, it's a draw. That's fine. That would solve it, wouldn't it? Straight away. If one army gets wiped out, but manages to outscore the other person by the end of the game, it's a draw. Problem solved. Problem solved, right? Because the World Eaters have won their part of the battle, but served the Imperial Guard. You'd solve all of these issues, and again, it would also make for much more interesting tournaments. Can you imagine that happening at a tournament? The amount of power plays going, oh my god, right? I've got to cap these objectives. Oh my god, it's the World Eaters. Oh my god, and they're getting chopped down, and you're desperately trying to survive and outscore the other person. That's a really cool way of doing it. I think that'd be, I don't know. It's a simple suggestion, hardly thought out, but that's what I'm doing. Do we have time to do the rest? I don't think we do. Yeah, we could be here for a long time. So I'm going to leave it there, because Positive Geekery is somebody I know in real life, so I will know where they are on this rundown here. Big Jay-Z, we're starting with you next time, so we'll speak to you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, guys. I will be back with a sequel to this video next week, and we're also going to be discussing certain factors of 40k rantage that I spoke about earlier before. That is the grey sludge that 40k is becoming. All right, I love you a long time. I'll speak to you soon and tomorrow for some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a good one. Bye now.